Hey guys, how's it going? It's Andy from Go Investing. Happy Thursday. Today we're going to be talking about one of the most anticipated public offerings of a company so far in 2021. So today we're going to be talking about Roblox, ticker symbol RBLX. This is a company that I did not know a lot about, but seeing the excitement around this public offering and the fact that it was up 54% in its first day and reached a market cap of $38 billion, I thought this was a company that I should talk about. Seeing the market cap of $38 billion makes it higher than other video game companies like Electronic Arts, ticker symbol EA, and Take-Two Interactive, which is ticker symbol TTWO. In addition, Cathie Wood from the ARK ETFs came out and said that she bought shares for the internet ETF that they have, which is ARKW. So whenever you have someone like Cathie Wood on your side, I think it's worth talking about why she thinks this company is so impressive going forward. So what is this company and why are people so excited about it? Because I'm 24, I'm not a boomer, but this is not a company that I've heard of. So I spent a lot of time this morning researching it, and now this is the third time that I've tried to record this because the video has failed. So I'd really appreciate it if you hit that like and subscribe button because this has been a pain to record. So as always, this video is going to be broken down into 3 parts. I'm going to be talking about first what the company is, their target demographic, and some impressive numbers that have come out from their SEC filings, and some of just the reports that I've been seeing from news stations about the company. Part 2, we're going to be talking about the financials of the company. I'm going to be diving deep into the SEC filings and talking about some of the important numbers that I think you should know to have a good understanding of how the company works overall. And then part 3, I'm going to give my overall thoughts on Roblox Stock, ticker symbol RBLX, for a long-term investment. I'm going to give it a ranking 1 out of 10 to kind of tell you how I feel about the company long-term, because I think it's important to say that when I talk about these companies, if this is a company that you love, and I don't say a lot of positive things about it, let me know in the comment section down below what you think I've missed, because I am not perfect. Obviously, I make a lot of mistakes. I'm not an expert at this. I just do probably more research than most people on these topics, and I put my opinion online. So I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say about Roblox, and especially if you bought in, I want to hear why. Also, before hopping into the video, GE stock has fallen further. It was down like 8% so far today. And I made a video yesterday talking about the investor day and the reason why it was down yesterday, and explain why I bought shares yesterday. And then the stock's down significantly today, and I did buy more shares. So if you want to hear my full explanation of what happened and why the stock is falling and why I'm still bullish on the company overall, I'll link that above right now. So what is Roblox? Roblox is a video game app that's focused mainly on the younger demographic, and it is massive. I always knew that it was pretty large, but as of June, it had been downloaded 383 million times on the Google Play Store and iOS. So that's a lot of people. And that's resulted in them having 150 million monthly active users. And I know that's a really large number, but I wanted to put that in perspective to another massive video game company with Minecraft. And the numbers that I could find, Minecraft currently has 131 million monthly active users. So Roblox is larger than that, which is pretty impressive to think about. Looking at their demographics, 67% of their users are under the age of 16. So this is targeting really the younger demographic. It makes sense why someone like myself, who is 24, really has never heard of this app before, and I don't actually know anyone that plays this video game. So even with that younger demographic, the average user spends $14 on the platform. And that's a metric that's really important to look at, because that's usually the negative thing about working with younger people, is that they don't have their own money. And so we have seen some examples of some apps that have done incredibly well, targeting the younger demographics and allowing them to spend their parents' money. And so we have been seeing that, it's been downloaded 383 million times, and the average person spends $14 on the platform. That results in a lot of revenue. Put that together with huge monthly user growth from 80 million people in 2018 all the way up to 150 million in 2020, you see some impressive numbers. You get a company that went from quarterly revenue of $60 million in quarter 1 of 2018 all the way up to $242 million in quarter 3 of 2020. And the question I always ask when I find these new companies is, how do they make money? The way that they do that is they have their in-game currency called Robux. And these are used to buy additional content on the platform. And one of the really interesting things is Roblox doesn't really make a lot of their own content. They have the interface and the infrastructure to allow people to build content. And so they have financial incentives for these really creative people to come in and create these different worlds and different stories on the platform. And instead of just paying them a flat fee for making their own stuff, 70% of the money that is spent on these servers are given out to the content creators. And so that is a much higher number than I was kind of expecting. Especially when you look on YouTube, I think the revenue share is like 40% for the user. And so seeing 70% for a company that has seen explosive growth in the past couple of years, I was pretty impressed by that. And that has resulted in the company expecting to pay out $250 million to its content creators this year. They also have incentives for the paid premium subscribers for how much time they spend on the individual world. So there's a lot of incentives for people to create really impressive worlds and experiences. Instead of the risk of having these people go off and creating their own games, they're giving them the financial incentives of 70% of the revenue to stay on the platform and create content for Roblox. And they also show a breakdown of how much people are making by creating these type of content. There's 250 people that made between $100,000 and $1 million, 29 people that made between $1 million and $10 million, and there are 3 people that made over $10 million creating content for Roblox. That's crazy to think about. I was talking with my roommate about the potential of any of my friend group making more than $10 million in their career, and we thought probably not. And the fact that people are creating content for a kid's game and made $10 million from it is crazy. They've also had some in-game events that have given a lot of publicity to the platform. They had Lil Nas X that was attended by 33 million people. And I wanted to see how that compared to the Travis Scott Fortnite concert that happened this past summer. And the numbers that I could find, there were 12 million people that saw the Travis Scott Fortnite concert. That's almost 3 times more for the Lil Nas concert that was on Roblox. That's pretty impressive. But now I've talked about what Roblox kind of is, I want to talk about some of the numbers behind the company, because for someone like myself that doesn't use the platform, I think looking at the numbers and trying to see the trajectory of the company is really important to determine if a company is worth buying in for a long-term investment. So Roblox has spiked in popularity and valuation. During the pandemic, a lot of kids have been limited in the ways that they can have social interaction, and a lot of people have been moving towards video games. And we've seen that with Roblox going from a valuation of $4 billion at the beginning of the pandemic to now a valuation up at $38 billion after they went public yesterday. They've also seen some very impressive growth for their normal metrics. Monthly users have almost doubled in the past 2 years. Revenue has increased by 4 times since Q1 of 2018. But this is a company that posted a massive loss in 2020. In the first 9 months of 2020, the company posted a net loss of almost $200 million compared to a loss of $38 million during the same period of 2019. This is a graphic that I found from their SEC filing that has a lot of information on it, and I wanted to highlight some of the areas that I thought were the most important. So from this, their annual revenue for 2020 was $923 million, which is very impressive, but they did have a loss from their operations of $1.2 billion that resulted in a net loss of $257 million in 2020. It's almost 4 times larger than it was in 2019. So where are these costs coming from? As I mentioned, they are paying out a lot of money to their content creators. $240 million in developer exchanges is one of the areas that really jumped out to me. These exchange fees, as I mentioned, are paid out to their developers for creating content on the platform, but another very important area is that the 30% fee that they're paying towards Apple and Google to be able to have transactions go through on their interfaces. So let's talk about part 3, where I give my thoughts on Roblox Stock, ticker symbol RBLX, for a long-term investment. Overall, they've seen some very impressive growth. And I love the idea of incentivizing their users to create content for the platform. When you have this type of community that's centered around building additional content for your platform, it really limits the lulls that we see with some of these major video game creators, where you have some time in between creating these major game releases where there's kind of some periods where there's not a lot going on, and having the constant refreshing of all these people trying to take advantage of the 70% revenue share that they have, it really allows the company to have fresh content constantly. And so I really like that. Also, another benefit that I saw is that they did not go through the traditional IPO method. And one of the problems that I have with IPOs is that you have the share lockup period. This is usually around 180 days after they go public, where the insiders that were given shares as part of being involved with the company before it went public are not allowed to sell their shares. And when this happens, when the share lockup period ends, usually you see insiders selling because they've made a lot of money from the share offering. And so they want to be able to sell to pocket some of the money, and they don't want to have the full exposure to this company, especially if the stock price has gone up significantly since it went public. But Roblox did something different. They went through a direct offering, which one of the benefits is that you don't have the share lockup period. We've seen a lot of companies go through this method recently, specifically Palantir, ticker symbol PLTR, that I made a video about a couple days ago. However, Palantir did have a share lockup period, which really confused me, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about Roblox. So this does have the benefit of they don't have the share lockup period. So I would feel more comfortable buying into Roblox pretty soon after it goes public instead of waiting for that share lockup period to end. They also have made a deal with Tencent to expand to the Chinese market. And whenever I talk about these companies that have done extremely well during the pandemic, I ask, is this type of growth sustainable? And I think this growth into China allows them to continue to expand rapidly, even if their user base in the US kind of shrinks after the pandemic finally ends. But being able to expand to the Chinese user base, a lot of growth potential there, obviously. But let's talk about some of the concerns that I have. Am I worried about the widening net loss? Not really. You have a lot of these tech stocks that go public, and they're not operating at a profit. It's become pretty common for these companies to not expect to go profitable for like 5 to 10 years. So I'm not super worried about that right now. A couple years from now, we'll look back at it and I'll maybe change my tune to it. But right now, not worried about the widening net loss. The things that I am worried about are the fees that they pay towards Google and Apple, which is 30% of their overall transactions. The company has come out and said that they are worried that Apple and Google potentially changing their fee structure or policies that would damage their profitability overall. So most of their transactions are going through Apple and Google. And if they decide to change their fee structure, that'd be a huge hit to the company for the long term. But the area that I'm really worried about has to do with their younger user base. And the company has come out during their SEC S1 filing and talked about some of the concerns that they have. So I wanted to read this quote. This demographic may be less brand loyal and more likely to follow trends, including viral trends and other demographics. We also may not be able to penetrate other demographics in a meaningful manner to compensate for the loss of daily active users in this age group. So as quickly as Roblox has expanded in popularity in the past year, it's possible that we see a contraction. And one of the ways that I'm kind of worried about that is what we've been seeing with some of the viral trends for video games like Among Us in the past year. This is a game that kind of popped up out of nowhere, and you get these content creators that are promoting it, and it explodes in popularity and becomes one of the most popular video games of 2020. But then it's kind of fallen off as the novelty is kind of worn off. And so that is something that I'm really worried about. Not only do you have the potential that the platform gets stale, you have the possibility that their users just grow up, and you have the potential that they're not going to be as interested in the platform anymore. And so this is something that the company has addressed as a concern, and it really worries me going forward because I don't know about the longevity of the company. When I look for long-term investments, I want to not only see that they're going to be expanding in the future, and they've had done well in the past, but I want to know that the company is going to be around in 5 to 10 years. And with Roblox, I'm not really sure. You do have the examples of something like a Minecraft that has really stayed popular for like the past decade, but recently has gotten more popular. And so there are examples of video game companies sticking around, but the fact that they're reliant on this one platform and they're very reliant on the user base sticking around does have me pretty worried, considering it is a free-to-play game compared to the Activision Blizzards of the world where they have like the $60 game. So that does worry me for a bit. Also, I try to go on YouTube and watch some of the content to have an understanding of what Roblox really was. And I made it towards the search, and then I saw the thumbnails and I was like, this is not targeted towards me. You know what, that is totally fine. Some of these channels have like 8 million subscribers that I've never heard of. It's crazy, I'm happy some people are enjoying it, but it shows that the community is active and there are people making content for this game that people really enjoy. But yeah, it's just not for me. So I don't love buying stocks for companies that I don't use. That's kind of a red flag for me. So overall, this is a very interesting company. I think having Cathie Wood on your side with the ARK ETFs is always a great bull case because she is a very vocal bull, and the fact that she is back to the company by buying shares of it for their internet ETF ARKW makes me feel pretty good because I'm sure she's done all of her homework and she is much more qualified than I am. But there are some red flags that I see, like the potential dangers of the Google and Apple changing their fee structures. We've been seeing problems with that with Fortnite, with Epic trying to go around that and then getting removed from the App Store, which would obviously be a huge detriment to the company for the long term because that is where a majority of their users are playing through. They also have the great concept of having users creating great content and being incentivized for it financially that keep people around on the platform. So I do absolutely love that for the company. But I am worried about the longevity of the company, as the company has come out and said that they are worried about the younger demographics growing out of the app. So as of right now, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10 on the Magoo scale. In the short term, I think it's very interesting and there's been a lot of hype and momentum surrounding it, but based off of what I see with the company and what I look for long-term investments, not something that I'm really looking to add to my portfolio. But I am very curious, if you decided to buy Roblox, why? What did I miss? What do you see with the company that maybe I didn't value as highly? And so I'm very curious to see why people have been buying into Roblox. Let me know in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching these videos. I appreciate all the support and I will see you next time.